Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, September 26th. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day so far. We have a big show for you. We are going to break down all of the biggest news from around the world of baseball as we are coming down to the final series. The second to last series for most teams are ending tonight or have already ended. We're going to take you through some of the bigger stories that happened around that sport today, as well as doing a Thursday night football preview. The New York Giants, my New York Giants, host the Dallas Cowboys in a divisional matchup tonight in New York. Massive Thursday night game. We'll break down who's going to win that one and by how much. Then we're going to turn our attention to hockey. The NHL season starts in just about 1 week from now. We're going to break down the Western and the Eastern conferences as best as we can. Get into some more deeper breakdowns later on next week. But before we do any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, September 26th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show in the world of baseball, as there have been a couple of big stories outside of the playoff picture that I wanted to touch on just a little bit. One that I've kind of been hinting at a little bit in the last week or so, the Chicago White Sox. We talked about them about a month ago when they were on pace to lose more games than anyone ever has in the history of modern baseball. Now, as we currently stand, with just 3 games left, heading into this series with 6 games left, they had hit that not-so-fun 120 loss number, which ties the 1962 New York Mets for the worst loss, for the most losses in an MLB season in the modern era that dates all the way back to 1900. Only one team has more losses than that, and that, of course, is the worst baseball team of all time, the 1899 Cleveland Spiders. But luckily, that is pre-modern era, so we don't have to worry about them when we're talking about our little White Sox conversation here. Heading into a series with the Los Angeles Angels, an Angels team that, while they aren't the best team, they aren't really a great team, have been leagues better than the White Sox. Everyone in baseball has been leagues better than the White Sox, but for whatever reason, once the White Sox hit that 120 mark, once they hit that tied with the New York Mets, they said, we're not messing around anymore. We are the Chicago White Sox. We will not go down in history books as the worst team in the MLB. And today, with a 7-0 emphatic victory at home to close out their season at home against an Angels team that was better than them all season long, they get their second sweep of the entire year, winning 7-0. We got to see a pitcher that had struggled basically the entire season come through massively for the White Sox. No earned runs, 6 1/3 innings, his best outing of the year. The White Sox have decided to not sit down and take this. It's quite the run they're going on right now. Up next, they have the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers, who, as we've talked about in recent weeks, have been the hottest team in baseball. They have been the team that everyone is trying to beat. They have the team that has the best record since early August. They're a team that has crawled all the way back from just a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs to if the season ended today, making the playoffs right now. in the playoffs, in the wild card. The Tigers have been a force to be reckoned with. That is what is up next for the Chicago White Sox. Not an easy task. They did line it up so that Garrett Crochet, their star pitcher, one of the guys they actually did not trade at the deadline, would be up. They pushed his start back so Chris Flexen would go today, and you have now Garrett Crochet going up against a Detroit Tigers team that has been hotter than anybody else. But this Chicago White Sox battle against 121, it's really impressive to see. Obviously, one more loss and they're done, but they've pushed it all the way to the brink. One more series against a quality playoff level team. We'll see if they can stave it off. If they can get their, again, they've only ever swept 2 series this whole season, and one of them just happened today. Ended about an hour before we started recording this episode, before we went live. They won. It's incredibly impressive. I'm a little bit rooting for the White Sox as much as I'd like to see history, as much as I'd like to sit here and say, you know what would be fun to watch? The White Sox lose 121 games. The White Sox lose 123 games. If they can go on this miraculous run, 6 straight games, their longest winning streak of the season by far, if they are able to do that, if they're able to win one more game, it'll be their longest winning streak of the season. It's been that kind of miserable season in Chicago. That would be an incredible storybook ending for a season that seemed like it would have no kind of happiness in the ending there. We'll see what happens though. Again, a massive, massive win for the White Sox today. They traveled to Detroit. Not an easy way to end their season, but if they can find a way, if the Detroit Tigers somehow, and they could knock the Detroit Tigers out of the playoffs. The Detroit Tigers magic number is 2. Same with the Minnesota Twins. If the Twins get hot, if the White Sox get hot, they could not knock their division rivals, the Tigers, out of the playoffs, which would just make their loss defense even sweeter. We'll see what they're able to do, though. The Tigers are nothing like the A's. The A's made a couple of blunders, back-to-back games. Game 1 of that series, they blundered it away in the 8th inning. Game 2 of the series, they lost in extra innings, and Game 3, they just got dominated. That's the most momentum these White Sox have ever had. I'm sure that is the most filled the stadium has been. In fact, it was kind of funny. They were showing replays last night of when the White Sox won in extra innings. The fans were booing. They wanted to see them lose, which is something that I don't think I've ever experienced or heard of, a fan base wanting their own team to lose, wanting to experience that history. And to a certain extent, I get it. It'd be cool to say, hey, I was at the 121st loss of the Chicago White Sox season. But I mean, like, if you're a true fan, you can't be rooting for your team to go down in infamy like that. That's just not a good way to do it. I understand history is history, and we're talking about it for a reason. There's a national spotlight on these Chicago White Sox, and it's not because of anything good they've done. It's because they're bad. It's because they're really, really bad. But if you're a fan of the White Sox and you're going to the game, you can't root for them to lose. You can be not mad if they lose. That is understandable. Like, you can expect your team to lose, but you can't boo your team when they win. That is ridiculous. That I can't sit here and defend the Chicago fans for that. Because that, I mean, as miserable as your season has been, you've only won 39 games now the whole season, and you're going to sit here and boo them for winning one of those 39 games. I mean, the players, it can't be fun to be in that locker room. Jeff Passan went and spent 24 hours with them, and they weren't as downtrodden as you might expect, but, you know, they're also not having a party in there. And when the fans want you to lose too, that's kind of heartbreaking. That I feel like as a professional athlete, that matters a little bit, that you got the support of your fans. And I know I'm sure they understand why they're booing. They want to see history. But like at the same time, how do you go out and play in front of your fans? The people that are supposed to go out and support you, have your back, I won't say unconditionally, but pretty much unconditionally. How are you supposed to go out there and say, you know what? I'm putting it all on the line. My whole life is to entertain you guys, right? They're entertainers. And then you get booed for doing your job correctly, for something you hadn't been able to do for basically the entire season, the entire year. I don't get it. I think that's disingenuous as fans, and I hope that stops in the future. I hope they're able to root for their White Sox when they're on the road, taking on the Detroit Tigers. I don't think they'll be able to keep this win streak up. They just haven't shown the ability, the licks, the chops to do it all season long. But I kind of hope they do. I kind of hope they find a way at the end to say screw you to the record books and keep their names out of it, just as a little tie marker right there, not as the sole possessor. Think that'd be fun. But we'll see. I'm rooting for the White Sox a little bit. I want them to win out. But we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think the White Sox will be able to keep this win streak up, get to 6 games to end the season, avoid the worst record in the modern era of baseball. I'd love to hear your thoughts. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Oakland Athletics, or should I say the Sacramento Athletics, or maybe the Las Vegas Athletics. We will talk about what's going on there as the Athletics have played their final game in the Oakland Coliseum as of last night. Stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm in fake shit. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement. The top is so vacant. I want shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crowd. Getting my way into be put down. It ain't your place. I'll get my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it. The noose it fits. I'm losing shit. The stupid myth. You choose to live, but choose to dip. You choose to fight. And lose your grip and lose your gift. Oh. Feel like I'm losing my mind. Everybody in the world, please Lord, give me a sign. A sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Everybody in the world. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, September 26th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about the Chicago White Sox, their path to avoiding the worst record in the modern era of baseball, currently sitting at 120 losses, pushing off that infamous record for at least one more game. 3 games left to go in the season. We talked about whether or not they would be able to stave off that less than ideal history-setting number at 121. In this segment, we are going to continue talking about baseball. Another not super exciting topic in the world of baseball. Lots of those going around right now. The Oakland Athletics, a storied franchise in the Bay Area. Been in Oakland forever. Left Philadelphia, moved over to California in Oakland. Been there for a very, very long time. Had some successful teams. Had plenty of failures. They had a long and drawn out fight with the owner, John Fisher. They're officially moving to Las Vegas. They have played their final game in the Oakland Coliseum as of yesterday. Fans not too happy. We're going to talk about that situation and what led up to it and where we stand right now. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with the message in it, or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, September 26th. But like I was saying, we're going to finish off our baseball coverage for today. Playoffs are right around the corner, talking about some more non-playoff teams. The Oakland Athletics, the Oakland A's, played their final game in the Oakland Coliseum as of last night. It's a bittersweet kind of moment. The A's fans, for a very, very long time, have been trying their best. Or they play their last game currently. They're playing their last game in in the Coliseum. They're winning 3-2 in the bottom of the 7th, trying to send out their old home with a win. They lost last night, but their final game is currently ongoing with the Texas Rangers. They're up 3-2 in the middle of the 7th, about to come up. This is a kind of bittersweet moment. It's a tale of greedy ownership, and I'm going to be a little careful about this because we don't know 100% of the details, but the gist of what's going on. John Fisher, the owner of the Oakland Athletics, has been negotiating with the city of Oakland for the last few years. We'll go about 5 years out. They've been negotiating for a new stadium. They've been threatening to move. They've been wanting to move for a long time. The issue is John Fisher does not want to pay a lick of money. He wants the city to pay for the stadium. And that's how it's worked for a long time. The city would dole out taxpayer money. They would cut a deal with the billionaire. They would finance whatever percentage of the stadium. But we're getting to an era now where this has kind of become more of a conversation of, hey, you're a billionaire. This is your business. You're going to be the one profiting off of it the most. Shouldn't you put up the money? And we've seen more and more cities. Virginia is an example. They said no to it, to the Washington Commanders' new stadium. Kansas City, they said no to a proposal for Arrowhead for a new Chiefs stadium, despite all the winning. Yada yada. More examples like that have been going on in recent history, where the city is saying no to these billionaires, and Oakland is a recent example of that. And I am on the side of that. I think the billionaires should have to pay at least 75% of the new stadium if they're going to, build a new one. This is a very important part of it. The Oakland Athletics are a storied franchise there. They have one of the most dedicated fan bases I've seen. And the Oakland A's have also been one of the cheapest franchises ever for a very long time. They've been incredibly cheap. They've been unwilling to spend. They've had one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. In fact, at one point last season, they had a lower payroll than Max Scherzer. Just Max Scherzer was making with the New York Mets when he signed his new deal. The Oakland Athletics had less money being paid to an entire roster than Max Scherzer was making just by himself. And that is a problem in and of itself. I know Moneyball, you want to talk about the big markets, the small markets, and the way that baseball works. They have their revenue sharing, but it's still, the TV contracts are the way that the teams get the most money. And these small markets, which, by the way, Oakland is not a small market. It acts like a small market team, but it's in the San Francisco market. That is one of the biggest TV markets. I believe the 6th biggest market in America. They shouldn't be treating themselves as this small market team. They are not a small market team, regardless of which they're comparing themselves to the Yankees. They're comparing themselves to the Dodgers. They go in that category of this small market team, right? This team that doesn't have the resources to go and pay these big bucks for these big players, which is perfectly fine. But what the Oakland Athletics have done is penny pinch at every single corner they possibly can. They've said no to every single deal. There have been plenty of proposals out there negotiated in bad faith by either the Oakland government or the Fisher family, the owners themselves. But the fans have been nonstop protesting for Fisher to cancel this move. Earlier this season, they officially announced, with the lease running out with the Coliseum, they would not be re-signing. They would be moving to Vegas. The construction has started on a massive stadium over there, but they don't have a stadium for the next couple years. So they're going to be playing in their AAA stadium, most likely in Sacramento. Now, they haven't made all the proper updates to that stadium that they need for it to be a major league ready stadium. So for 3 years, they're going to be playing in a AAA ballpark, which I think is just a miss. There's no reason why they couldn't have worked something out, at least for a minimum, while they were working and building a new stadium in Vegas. And I know people in Oakland aren't very happy. They're trying to get a new stadium built. They want their team to be there. Oakland has been through a lot sports-wise recently. They were a very, very proud sports area. They once, just in recent memory, as of 7 years ago, they had 3 major sports teams. They had the Oakland A's. They had the Oakland Raiders. They had the Golden State Warriors, all in that Oakland area. The Golden State Warriors move across the bridge. The Raiders move to Vegas. And now the A's follow suit with the Raiders and move over to Vegas. The Oakland area, which has a proud and prominent history of supporting its sports teams fervently through the good, through the bad, through the mediocre, through everything, the ups and downs of sports, now is a city without a sports franchise. And that is one of the biggest tragedies in the modern sports era for me right now. I don't understand how you look at a passionate market, a passionate fan base like the Oakland A's. They might not show up to the games, but that's because they're protesting right now. That is not because they don't care. They care more than most franchises in baseball. I went to the Nationals game last night. No one's protesting. They're a bad team, but no one really shows up. It was filled with Royals fans, which is a small market team, a team that, while they're in a playoff hunt, doesn't travel that well, if you're being completely honest, but the stadium was mostly empty, right? The Oakland A's are a dedicated, strong fan base. You see that they've sold out this last series. There are videos of groundskeepers spending the entirety of pregame and postgame pouring pieces, shoveling up some of the dirt, pouring it into fans for water bottles so they can have Coliseum dirt. This is a stadium, this is a franchise that has been with families in the area for a very, very long time. And they're just taking it away, not because the Oakland people didn't want them, not because they weren't trying their best to get them, not because the city didn't put out proposals, but because the Fisher family are penny pitchers. Billionaires are penny pitchers. That's one of the biggest oxymorons I have ever heard. It's not good for the sport of baseball. It's not good for the city of Oakland. It's not good for one of the best fan bases in the entire world. It's not fair. It really isn't. And I hope they're able to finish this game out. They're up 3-2 in the bottom of the 7th right now. I really hope they're able to finish it out with a victory. And I hope when baseball expands, they bring a team back to Oakland. I really do. Because if there's anywhere that deserves another sports team, if there's anywhere that deserves another baseball team, it's Oakland. It really is. They'll build a new stadium. There's plenty of billionaires in Oakland that have said they would buy the team from Fisher if he sold it. There's a whole campaign to do it. He's one of the worst owners in baseball. He's one of the worst owners in sports. And he was negotiating in bad faith because he just wanted to leave and go to Vegas. It's a sad situation. It really is. It's unfortunate for all of those loyal Athletics fans. But hopefully they can go out on a high note in a stadium that has supported and hosted that team for multiple generations. I keep seeing videos online of people saying, this is where my dad went and watched the A's. This is where I watched the A's growing up. This is where I took my son to watch the A's growing up. It's stuff like that that means a lot to a city, to a fan base, you know? And they're just taking it all away. And I don't support it. I think they should have been able to work out a deal. I know it's not easy to do it, but it happens everywhere else. And movement like this only seems to happen when teams just don't want to be in that place anymore. Not when the fans don't want them to be there. But I digress. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think the A's should have done. Let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. But I'll keep you updated on the A's game as we continue our show. It should end before our show is up. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are going to shift our attention to the NFL. There is a Thursday night football matchup, an NFC East matchup, two powerhouses of the 2010s. The Dallas Cowboys head to New York to take on the New York Football Giants in a clash of two teams that are not very good this year. But we'll talk all about it, who's going to win this game, how much they're going to win by, and why it's going to be the Giants. I'm kidding. But stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, Except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, September 26th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over two of the more intriguing storylines in all of baseball right now. First, the Oakland Athletics finishing up their final game in the Oakland Coliseum. End of an era there as they prepare to move to their new home in Vegas. And of course, the White Sox doing everything they can to not break the modern era record for most losses in a single year. Stuck at 120, tied with the 62 Mets. Tough series, but they just swept their second ever of the entire year. In this segment, we're switching our attention over to football. We are talking all about the New York Giants taking on the Dallas Cowboys in New York. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, September 26th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are going to talk all about the NFL. Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. The New York Giants host the Dallas Cowboys in their second division matchup of the year. The Dallas Cowboys coming off of a loss to the Baltimore Ravens, one where they gave up over 170 total rushing yards to Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry had over 150 of them on his own. The Giants coming off of their first win of the season, taking down the Cleveland Browns, a team that the Dallas Cowboys also had their only win of the season against so far. Both of these teams 1-2. The Cowboys are worse than a lot of people, myself included, thought they were going to be, especially defensively against the run, while the Giants are more along the lines of what we expected. Daniel Jones, coming off of that ACL injury, hasn't been able to use his legs as much as you would expect him to against a Dallas team that has really been able to be run on. That's going to be a massive, massive liability. If he's able to run a little bit like Lamar Jackson does, he doesn't have to do a Lamar Jackson kind of run game, but if he's able to pick up a couple of really important yards on the ground, a couple of first down conversions, that would be huge for the Giants' chances to win. The Cowboys favored by 5 on the road in this one. Dak Prescott, we talked about the Cowboys a lot, right? They are a team that on paper looks awesome. Their defense on paper is awesome, and in their last 2 games last year against the Giants, they dominated them. It was not close, winning by almost 40 in both games, including a Week 1 40-0 beatdown. That's not a normal thing a football team should go through. The Giants are looking for a little bit of redemption. They lose Saquon Barkley, which would have been huge in this matchup. Again, the Dallas run defense has been atrocious. They add Devin Singletary, who's been solid as a replacement. 65 yards a game rushing so far on the year. Should get a big boost. He's the kind of guy that I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go. The Cowboys, when they lose, have started behind in games. If the Giants are able to get to a quick start, which they have been able to do, like they were able to do in Week 2 against the Washington Commanders. If they're able to do that, if they're able to get pressure like they were against the Browns, where they finished the game with 8 sacks in a game, the first time they've done that in a very, very long time, hearkening back to those Super Bowl defensive lines for the New York Giants. It's been a while since they had anything like that kind of production. Very, very exciting to see as a Giants fan. If they're able to get that pressure, if they're able to slow down the Cowboys, especially in the beginning, and they're able to double team CeeDee Lamb, that is the recipe for success. That's the recipe to beat the Cowboys. Run the ball. Be successful running the ball. Then guard CeeDee Lamb, and then don't just double CeeDee Lamb and go straight up on everyone else. If they can't run the ball, they're very one-dimensional. That's been the recipe to beat the Cowboys. Now the Giants defense is missing Andrew Phillips, rookie cornerback, who's been really solid this season, has the highest corner grade out of any rookie defender this season. But the real key for the Giants, the real key rookie, has been Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors has been special all season long. Malik Neighbors has been that guy that you look at and go, wow, he makes one of those plays every game. Really came out against the Washington Commanders, scored his first touchdown, went over 100 yards, had like 15 or 16 targets, caught 12 balls. He is the offense, a lot like the Dallas Cowboys want to be with CeeDee Lamb, but Malik Neighbors is very explosive. He's going to go up against a very good cover corner. He kind of struggled against the best corner in Cleveland a little bit. He was able to take advantage against some of the weaker corners in Cleveland. When he mossed a guy, had one of the most athletic catches for a touchdown you'll ever see in a live football game. He's going to be the weapon, but they cannot forget about the run, because if they want to beat the Dallas Cowboys, if they want to keep this game close, they need to rely on Devin Singletary. They need to rely on Daniel Jones's leg, and they cannot turn the ball over. The Cowboys are a very dangerous team, plain and simple. The Dallas Cowboys are a team that can beat you if you let them. But if you stay strong, if you control the time of possession, and if you get off to a strong early lead, we've seen this is a Cowboys team that can be beaten. We've seen this is a Cowboys team that is not immortal. We've seen this is a Cowboys team that against good teams is very beatable. Are the Giants a good team this year? I don't think so. And as much as I want to say the Giants are going to win this game, as much as I want to sit here and say, who's going to score 4 touchdowns? Malik Neighbors is. I can't do that. The Giants defense, outside of their defensive line, is not strong enough. CeeDee Lamb is going to have a massive game. Dak Prescott loves playing against the Giants. He's been very good at it his whole career. There's no reason to think it's going to stop now. The defensive line is very good. They should stop the run game. But Micah Parsons is going to be a problem. Andrew Thomas did very good holding up against Myles Garrett, but Micah Parsons is going to move around the line. He's not going to just go up against. He's not just going to go up against Andrew Thomas every single snap. That'll be a fun matchup. I think the Cowboys take this game. I think it's a little bit closer than some people think. I know some people are thinking it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think the final score of this game will be the Dallas Cowboys 31, the New York Giants 20. Garbage time touchdown in there to really pull away. Big game for CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, and the Cowboys. The Giants should keep it a little bit competitive, though. But let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what you think of this Thursday night matchup, this divisional matchup that, might be a little bit more competitive than some people thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season, with the Cowboys looking worse than they were. But like I said, let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are going to turn our attention to the world of hockey. The NHL season kicks off, or should puck drop for the NHL season, I should say, is next Friday. We're going to break down a little bit of the Western and the Eastern Conference coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, September 26th. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone over the Thursday night football matchup between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. In this segment, we are going to turn our attention to the world of hockey. The hockey season, the NHL, puck drop is on Friday of next week. We are going to start our preview with the Eastern and Western Conference, just a light overview of where I think a lot of these teams will be, maybe some playoffs. We'll do a deeper overview throughout the week next week as we do a lot of game predictions tomorrow. We're going to start off in the Eastern Conference, but before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, September 26th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit of hockey. Hockey season is right around the corner. Those who have been watching me for a while know I am a very big hockey fan. We're going to start off in the Eastern Conference, and we're going to start off with my Washington Capitals here. The big storyline for the Washington Capitals is Alex Ovechkin. Alex Ovechkin, maybe the greatest goal scorer in the history of the NHL, is going for the record. He's currently about 45 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's once thought unbreakable record for goals scored in a career. He is a guy that if there's going to be anyone to do it, it's going to be him. Alex Ovechkin is a little older, but he has shown very little signs of aging. There was a little bit at the beginning and middle of last season, but he really turned it on towards the end in a playoff push, pushing the Capitals to a surprise playoff berth. Not something that was very much expected of them. They were able to make it and turn it around. Very exciting for a team, for an older team like that, trying its best to stay competitive for the final years of Ovechkin's career. Ovi is a guy that I think, if he has one more good 50-goal season in him, it's going to be this year. I think there's no doubt in my mind he breaks that record. He's got about 45 to go. Whether that's one season or 2 seasons from now, he is going to break that record. I think it happens this season, though. If we're talking about the Capitals, that is the big storyline. We are on record watch there. Just a fun thing to keep track of. But outside of that big storyline, let's talk a little bit of who's going to win in each division. And we'll start in the Atlantic. In the Atlantic, obviously, we have the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers are a team that should make the playoffs regardless of what is going on around them. They're coming off of a Stanley Cup. That's a lot of hockey to be played, but they should still make the playoffs. They're still a very good team. Behind them, you have a couple of teams that are up and coming or have been good for a while. The Toronto Maple Leafs star Austin Matthews. They're the Cowboys of hockey, right? That's the best way to describe them for people that don't really understand the sport that well. They're the Cowboys of hockey. They've been saying it's their year for as long as I can remember, forever. But no cup has ever been won by a team from Canada since 1992. Maybe we get to see that change this year, but the Toronto Maple Leafs, as long as they have Austin Matthews, should make the playoffs. Then for that final seed in the Eastern, in the Atlantic, there's only 3 seeds from each division, 2 wild cards. Florida, Toronto. Then we have an interesting decision. The Boston Bruins. The Bruins have always find a way to be good, right? They were once again really good. They traded away one of their goalies, which I thought was a mistake here. I know they have 2, but trading away one of them, I think, really hurts their depth. And you don't really want a goalie to play 82 games a year. Tampa Bay, on the other hand, has one of the best goalies in the world in Andrei Vasilevsky. They've lost a couple of major pieces offensively, though, including Steven Stamkos, no longer on the team. That is a huge, huge loss for them. Ottawa, a team looking to take a step forward. Same thing with Buffalo. I thought last year was going to be the year they were going to take that step forward. Lincoln and their new goalie coming up last year was a little bit of a disappointment. I'm going to lean towards Boston to get that last spot. As far as wild card goes, we're going to go over the Metropolitan, but there's a couple of different contenders there for them, including Tampa Bay, including Ottawa and Detroit as well. Not saying they all should make it, but in the Metropolitan, there's a clear upper class and a clear lower class, right? In your upper class, you have the New York Rangers, team that made the Eastern Cup, the Eastern Conference Finals last year, losing to the Florida Panthers en route to their Stanley Cup. The Carolina Hurricanes also up there with them. And besides that, there's really no one. You can make an argument for the New Jersey Devils, a team that was just ravaged by injuries last year, a team that I think is still really good. They got that goalie they've been waiting for a long time. We'll see if that makes a difference. I think it will. I'm willing to put them up in that upper class. But outside of that, it's a lot of middle class guys. Older teams like the Penguins, like the Capitals, both of them, Crosby, Ovechkin, are aging, and they're just kind of riding out their glory years with those guys. The Islanders, who made a surprise playoff run last year. The Philadelphia Flyers, who looked like they were going to be in the hunt until they kind of fell off at the end. And then the Blue Jackets, which are kind of at the bottom there. You really have a top tier and a bottom tier. So I think this one, as far as the division, the top three in the division are pretty clear. The Rangers, the Hurricanes, and the Devils. When we start to talk about wild card, we're going to get at least one from the from the Atlantic division, right? You're going to get either Tampa Bay or Boston. I'm leaning Tampa Bay because I think Boston has a slight edge over them as far as winning that division. But in the Metro, I mean, you could pull off some more magic from Pittsburgh, from Washington. Pittsburgh's a solid team this year. Washington, a team that's just kind of playing for Ovi there. Maybe you get Columbus. Obviously, the tragedy there with the Goudreau brothers happening earlier this summer, both of them losing their lives. They were just riding a bike. Drunk driver struck them. Really unfortunate event. Maybe they're able to rally around that and turn their season around. But as far as making those final two wild card spots, we're going with Tampa. And just for fun, we're going to throw Buffalo in there as well. You know, a team that's kind of felt like they've been on the up and up, haven't really been able to get there. That's more of a dark horse there, but that's my playoff prediction. Let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to turn our attention to the Western Conference, talk about those Western Conference teams, give you some playoff predictions, and much more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, September 26th. If you were just tuning in, we've just gone over the Eastern Conference for the NHL. Season starting in just about a week. We'll do deeper dives into some of those teams and divisions throughout all of next week. In this segment, we're going to finish off our show talking about the NHL Western Conference, do a little bit of playoff predictions, breakdown, a little light breakdown of everything that's happening around the world of the Western Conference in the NHL. But before we do that, Remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, September 26th. But like I was saying, we're going to finish off our NHL preview real quick, talking about the Western Conference. The Western Conference is a lot tighter. I think it's a lot more top-heavy than the Eastern Conference is. There are a lot more of those teams jumbled up at the top, a lot more questions than the Eastern Conference, at least in my opinion here. We're going to start off in the Pacific Division, where you had the runner-up, the Edmonton Oilers, come oh so close to winning the first Stanley Cup for Canada since 1992. Connor McDavid wins the Conn Smythe Trophy as a loser, only the third time that has ever happened. Kind of an awkward moment for him, but he does get recognized for his hard work. And speaking of him, that Edmonton Oilers team seemed to have found something in the playoffs. The biggest issue with them had always been their defense. They've always had one of the strongest offensive units in all of hockey. Connor McDavid, adding Leon Draisaitl with him, that is a deadly duo. That is one of the more deadly duos you could possibly even get. But they'd always struggled with goaltenders. Skinner really stepped up there in the playoffs, pushing them over the top of some really, really good teams. If they're able to keep that up, they should be favorites to come out of the West again. That combination of offense and goaltending with their intensity on defense is unmatched. But in that Pacific Division, there are a couple of teams that are right there with them. Vancouver finished up all the way at the top of that division last year, kind of had some injuries at the goaltending position in the playoffs. They were still able to make it. They were still able to advance around in the playoffs, ending up losing to those Edmonton Oilers. But they had some solid goaltending. If they get their goaltending back, if they get Demko back healthy and he's able to be there for the postseason, they should come back again. They were a team we've been waiting on for a while. They finally emerged and just had some bad luck in the playoffs. They're built to go for a while. Same thing with Vegas. They seem to pull this every year. Well, they play with the LTIR situation, long-term injured reserve, mess around with the cap because they just have too many good players. They're going to try not to do that again this season as far as I can tell. But there should be a lock to make the playoffs, whether or not it's in the division winners or not. There's lots of contenders, though. We mentioned Edmonton, we mentioned Vegas, we mentioned Vancouver. The Kings are a team that have kind of been Edmonton light, is how I like to describe them, the way they're built. You have Calgary tearing it up in the preseason right now. Seattle was a threat last year. I'm not too concerned about them, but they're a team that could always come back, find the magic that they had a year ago in their second season in the NHL. But as far as division winners, I think it's pretty clearly going to be Vancouver, Edmonton, and Vegas, with a couple of wild card options in there. When we get to the Central, it's a little more interesting. Obviously, you have the Dallas Stars. I am a Dallas Stars fan. I love the way, not a fan, but I love the way that they build their team. Jake Ottinger at goalie, one of my favorite goalies in the league. You have a great defense, a deep offense. They've got all the pieces, but this is their last year to really put it together before their team really starts to fall apart due to the cap. Winnipeg, same thing. Their goalie kind of fell apart in the playoffs, but they're really good. They have Connor Hellebuck, who I believe won the best goalie award in hockey last season. Nashville snuck into the playoffs last year. You still have Colorado and Minnesota, who are always, always dangerous. And you have the emergence of a brand new franchise. The Arizona Coyotes are no more. They are now the Utah hockey team. You've talked a little bit about this in the past when they were first moving over. Brand new franchise. I believe a hockey team will be awarded back to Arizona in due time, but this is a brand new franchise. The Utah hockey team, they'll get a real name in the next couple of seasons, but they get their inaugural season. I'm very excited to see what they look like, what they're able to do this year. They open up their season on Tuesday, October 8th at home against the Blackhawks. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Same team, new place. They're not going to be very good, I don't think, but it should be fun to see them in action. Brand new hockey franchise. We've got to see that 3 times recently, but you don't get to see that too often usually. As far as picking a winner in the Central, it's hard to pick against the Dallas Stars. They're going to make it in one of those top 3 positions. Same thing with the Colorado Avalanche. Their offensive talent, they need more consistent goaltending, but in the regular season, they should be good enough to get a top 3 spot in the Central Division. And the last one, who I think will get a spot, I'm going to give the nod here, to Winnipeg. Connor Hellebuck is just going to continue to do his thing. It's going to be very tough to stop him. When we get to the wild card spots, though, this is where it gets interesting. I don't think Nashville's going to be able to keep it up what they did last year. I think they're going to miss out. I think Minnesota gets in this time. I think the Wild are a team that just got really unlucky last year. I think they're able to turn it around. And then the Kings get in from the Pacific. Let me know what you think of my playoffs, though. We're going to take, that's my Western Conference preview. We're going to do a deeper dive into each division Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week as we prepare for the hockey season to start on Friday. Do Stanley Cup predictions then as well. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with game picks for college football, for the NFL, and breaking down Thursday night football as well as our world famous MLB power rankings. Final ones of the season as we reach the playoffs over the weekend. Appreciate all you sticking around. I'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't